Hi, and welcome to the final event of our Futures at UA92. And we've definitely kept the best part to last. So I'd like to welcome Andy Burnham, Mayor of Manchester.
Hi, Katie. Hi, everyone.
Hi, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. I know you're a man in high demand, so we really appreciate you joining our Futures Week at UA92.
You're welcome. It's important. Glad to be able to talk about opportunities and careers for young people in Greater Manchester. So, well
Thank you so much. So our Futures Week has been kind of created as part of National Careers Week, and this week we've heard from industry leaders in Greater Manchester and beyond, and we've heard their kind of real world advice and intel on careers, employabilities and skills needed for the specific industries that we focused on this week. So I was hoping today that we'd be able to hear kind of your insight into your career, who you've been influenced by, and your kind of take on the skills that our future students will need. So we've been sent loads of questions from students, loads and loads of emails I've received, loads of tweets as well, and our UA92 students have put some questions together as well, so we better get started. And I know that there will also be loads of questions from our student audience too, so do feel free to pop them in the question box or the chat box, and I'll be sure to kind of get them round at the end of the session. So first up, we have a bit of a silly round, a bit of a rapid question round. So I'm hoping that you're up for some quick fire questions that our student audience have sent in. Is that okay?
Definitely. Well, I think so. It's a bit worrying when it's quick fire.
Well, yeah, we'll see where we get up to. So the first up is, what's your favourite thing to do in Manchester?
Go for a beer and then go to a gig. And I'm missing that badly at the moment.
What's your favourite place to go for a beer in Manchester then? Is it like the pubs or the clubs?
Yeah, it's the pubs, yeah. I've got lots of favourite ones. The one I go to a lot is right next door to my office. It's the one that used to be a public toilet underground, the Temple. I don't know if people know it.
Yes, I've been there many times.
It was in an Elbow song.
Yes, it was, yeah, definitely. Actually, the next question, what was the first gig you ever attended?
It was in 1978, which I think a lot of people are thinking, what? He's that old? A band called the Boomtown Rats at the Liverpool Empire. And for those of you who don't know them, they had a song called I Don't Like Mondays, which I guess is the one that you might know.
Brilliant. And so what's your second favourite city, as we know that Manchester will definitely be your first choice?
Oh, it is, no question. But I'll have to be honest and say it is the other place down the M62. And as people know, I was born there. I love both cities, Liverpool and Manchester.
Brilliant.
Manchester's definitely number one. Although I was born in Liverpool, I grew up more in Manchester because my dad got a job in Manchester when I was dead young, when I was only 1. So Manchester is number one. I'm not even, I'm not doing the politician thing by saying that. It is number one. But I am very, very fond of Liverpool as well.
Excellent. What is your most used emoji? Thumbs up. Like it. So when you're not working, how do you like to spend your time?
Watching Everton win, which is happening quite a lot at the moment. But apart from that, listening to music, running. I have done a lot of running all year. And I'm getting, the older I get, the more I have to get into that, because obviously you get the middle age sort of belly, whatever. But yeah, football, music, running, beer, that's pretty much me, really.
Excellent. And have you found that's changed kind of during the pandemic? Have you got more into running since kind of we've been in lockdown, or were you already a bit of a runner?
More into beer, I think. Well, I shouldn't really admit that, should I, as my role? No, I have been doing a lot. I've probably been more active in the last year than I've ever been in my life, yeah. So I've been really working hard to get out and about. So yeah, definitely been doing more running.
Excellent. This one's a really good question. I really like this question. Would you rather travel back in time or forward into the future?
Oh, back in time. Yeah, I'm kind of a nostalgic kind of person. I think I would definitely want to sort of go back to certain things in my life, or even before. Future, yeah, I don't know. It feels, given everything we're living through, it feels a bit, but I'm sure it's going to be better.
And what time period would you like to go back to?
I would probably like to go back to the 1960s. I think it had just been amazing to be around Manchester and Liverpool, the Northwest as a whole, in the 1960s.
Yeah.
All the football clubs doing well, the music. I think it'd have been fantastic actually to be around here in the 60s.
Especially in Liverpool with the Beatles, I completely agree. I think that's kind of a good time period to go back to. Going on to kind of school, so what was your favourite subject in school?
It was actually Spanish. That was the subject that I thought I was going to take at university, because I just had a bit of a flair for it. So I really enjoyed it, and I got into everything to do with Spain, really, Spanish football and food, and yeah. So I still have a real soft spot for Spain, and the minute Manchester Airport's properly open again, I'm on a plane. So missing being in Spain, but yeah, Spanish, it was my best subject. In the end, I did English at university, so I had a bit of a flair there. I was much better at what you might call humanities subjects than maths or science.
Excellent. And why did you move from kind of Spanish to English at university?
It was my English teacher at school who said to me, we think you might be good enough to apply to Cambridge, which was like the biggest shock of my life. You know, my mum and dad didn't go to university, and I dreamt that I would do that. And I think, though I enjoyed Spanish, I was actually probably better at English, and that's why I in the end applied to do English, and got rejected first time on my application to Cambridge, but then I got in through the pool or the back door, so I did actually do English at Cambridge.
Excellent. If someone were to play you in a movie, who would you want it to be?
Oh, that is a good question, isn't it? Robert De Niro, I think.
Nice, like that one. Who is your favourite football player? Now, I know this is going to be a bit of a tricky answer for you.
Tricky. Every time I talk about football, I lose votes, and I've got an election coming in May, Katie. Well, I'm going to talk it on numberless, because it's not just on the pitch, is it? So people might remember I did a lot of work with Vincent Kompany on homelessness. And Vincent, Manchester legend, actually, you know, brilliant person to work with. So he's a manager now, but definitely one of my favourites. And then more recently, Marcus, with everything that he's done this year. You've got a lot of footballers behind UA92, and I'm very fond of all of them, Gary and Ryan, etc. But I guess if you ask me who is my current favourite player to watch on the pitch, it would be James Rodriguez, who plays for Everton. Nice.
I won't tell Gary that you didn't say him, don't worry. What's the first career you dreamed of having as a child?
It was a footballer playing for Everton, but actually I was a better cricketer. I was a proper good cricketer, even though I say it myself. I played for Lancashire schoolboys when I was growing up, and I know Lancashire County Cricket Club are a partner in UA92. I played at Old Trafford Cricket Ground 3 times, so I kind of got to that level. Yeah, Lancashire under-15s,
yeah.
And then just wasn't. I thought I was a fast bowler. I was actually a bit of a medium pace bowler, really, certainly when I got a bit older. But no, I loved cricket. I was a fairly decent cricketer, and I wanted to be a cricketer for a while. And when that faded, I wanted to be a journalist for a while, and I did. Become a journalist. My first job out of university was at the Middleton Guardian as a reporter, and it was only a bit later in life that I turned towards politician.
Excellent. So it sounds like a pretty varied career that you've had. And actually, I asked that question to someone previous in one of the sessions, and they said astronaut. So cricketer is quite a sensible answer, I think, in the grand scheme of things. So I bet that kind of young Andy would never believed what you've achieved now. And obviously, you've had such a kind of successful and varied career. So could we go back to the beginning, and could you tell me about the first job you had, whether it was in journalism, was it?
Yeah, it was. It was actually an unpaid job. So I left university in 1991. Again, a long time ago, but it was a tough time, actually. And Manchester then was nothing like it is today. It was a place where there weren't many jobs, certainly in the media. And I must have sent like 300 or 400 applications without getting anything back. And the only one I got back was from the Middleton Guardian, so North Manchester. And the offer was to work unpaid. So I ended up starting off working unpaid. There's only so long you can do that when my mum and dad, as I say, didn't go to university. They weren't well paid or anything like that. And I did it for about 3 or 4 months, and I just couldn't fund it anymore. But it did help me get my first foot on the ladder. But ever since then, I've had a real objection to young people being asked to work unpaid to get their experience. I'm really against it, because I think it kind of narrows careers to people with parents who can keep them in a position like that unpaid. You know, not everybody's in that position. But yeah, it was a tough time actually, that when I graduated. But in the end, as I say, you know, doors open for you in life, and you've got to walk through them and take the opportunity. And I thought I was going to be a journalist, but in the end, changed course.
And what skills did you kind of learn there? Obviously, you worked unpaid, but I can imagine you were kind of an assistant to someone, or were you writing articles? What type of skills did you learn there that you kind of still use to this day?
Well, somebody had been made redundant, so I just went in and occupied their desk and their phone and their computer, but with no money. So I was doing the job of a reporter, but I was doing all the kind of things that no one else in the office wanted to do, you know, the sort of court things and all of this kind of stuff. Yeah. So it was great. I loved it actually, and I wouldn't swap it now. What did I learn that carried me through? It was a tough environment. There's no doubt about that. Newspapers were, you know, I had to learn quickly. My university ways got knocked out of me quite quickly in the Middleton Garden. But what I learned was, I'd kind of learned to write at university with all this flowery language, long words and everything. They always teach you to overcomplicate. And the newspaper taught me to absolutely simplify. And writing simply for everybody, so that everyone can understand what you're saying, is actually a greater skill, I think, than writing complex university dissertations. So writing for mass, you know, usage in a newspaper is actually a really important skill to have, because then that presentation skill that you get from that, I think, is useful to you in all jobs that you might do, because everyone has to present themselves or express themselves. And I think that helped me, because politics is about communication and presentation. And I do think that's probably helped me throughout my political career.
And if the younger Andy, the younger journalist, could see what you've achieved today, what do you think that they'd say?
He wouldn't have been able to get his head around it. And in some ways, the older Andy can't at times. But I mean, I don't want to make it a sob story, but you know, my mum and dad didn't go to university. They weren't people with any political connections. They were just ordinary Labour voters. They got me a bit interested in politics, but not because of any career thing that they thought might happen. And so I really would have struggled to take on board how I could have achieved what I've achieved. And I would say that to any young people watching this today, you might think the same, you know, how would I get to something like that? But I was like that. And I think the thing is, and I really feel this quite passionately, Katie, Northerners have something in our DNA that makes us do ourselves down, like I can't do that, or that's beyond me. And it isn't. And you mustn't think that way. You know, I think what's great about people from our part of the world is there's a warmth there, we're connected, we're relatable. So we're quite attractive to employers for all of those reasons, really good people skills. But the one thing we have that does us down, I think, is we sometimes kind of like set our sights a bit too low. You know, we kind of sell ourselves a bit short. And I've always gone through my life with a bit of a confidence issue. You know, when I first arrived at Cambridge, I thought I was going to get thrown out because I thought they'd made a mistake. When I first went into Parliament, I felt the same when I heard all these posh voices around, and am I going to actually fit in here and make it work? And I've always had that. And it's in some ways it's natural and normal, but I think sometimes for people in the North, we take it too far and we hold back from applying for things that we really should apply for things. Mm-hmm. And I would just say to everyone on the call, you know, if I've been able to do it, there's no reason why you can't do it. If you've got something in your heart that says, you want to aim high at something, then you do it. The thing I remember really strongly, Katie, if I could just say this from my youth, is I had big ambitions when I was coming through school for the things I wanted to do, but I feared saying it because I thought people would take the mickey out of me, you know, around me, my friends group, and therefore I never said it. Mm-hmm. But when I got to university, I was surrounded by people who said, oh yeah, I'm going to be a lawyer, I'm going to be a doctor. And I just wasn't brought up to sort of say that. But actually they were the ones who were kind of getting ahead because they just had that confidence. And I just would say to people, don't hold back and don't sort of fear others taking the mickey. You can do it. Say what you want to do and follow that dream. And I think that's something I looking back, I should have done that more than I actually did.
Yeah, and I know you really believe in that suffragette quote, deeds not words, and I think that really kind of comes through in kind of what you've achieved throughout kind of your career, is that you've always had those deeds, you've always done those kind of activities in that career, and you've had those deeds not words rather than words not deeds. So thank you for that answer. So who has been the most influential person in your life?
I mean, I can look at people who've helped me along my career path, and there are lots of those. Gordon Brown, who was the Prime Minister, if you go back just over 10 years ago, still is a big friend of mine. Neil Kinnock, somebody who was once leader of the Labour Party, a big friend of mine as well. The person who gave me my first job in politics was somebody called Tessa Jowell. And for those who don't know Tessa, she was the person who was most responsible for the London Olympics, and I worked with Tessa and I learned a lot from her. But at the end of the day, I come back to family. You know, it's that always, whenever I've had a real dilemma in my political career, it's not been other politicians I've gone to, it's been my mum and dad and my brothers, you know. And I think, you know, trust the people really closest to you, trust your instincts. I learned in my career, I was like, you know, when I was first working in Westminster, you get blinded by all these, like, you know, people, you know, oh, I've got to be in with them and they'll know more than anybody I know from home. And the truth is they don't. You know, stay true to yourself, stay true to your roots, you know, listen to the people you love and the people you care about, because often they've got your best interest right at heart and they understand things in a way that some of the more fickle friends you might find in business life or political life, you know, they often don't have your back really. So yeah, whenever I've had a real challenge, I've always gone back to my mum and dad and my brothers, and we've kind of worked it out amongst the family.
Brilliant, thank you. And so we're going to go to one of our student questions. So Jack from Salford City College has a question for you.
Hi Andy, it's Jack. What would you be doing if you were a politician?
Oh, thanks, Jack. I honestly don't know. I don't know if I would have made it in the media, to be honest. I've not got Katie's journalistic and presentation skills. Both of my brothers are teachers. My eldest brother, Nick, is the principal of a sixth form college in Preston. And my younger brother, John, has just become a head teacher. He was at Birchwood High School in Warrington, and he's just now moved to Ormskirk High School. So I think it's probably likely that I would have in the end moved towards education, because I think, you know, we're all a bit public service oriented, I guess. And yeah, you know, the likelihood is I've probably done the same thing as my brothers.
Would it have been Spanish teacher, English teacher, something completely different, music teacher?
Definitely not music teacher. That was the one. Music was the one O level I failed at school, Katie. Thanks for reminding me of that. I don't know. Music is the toughest exam. You know, I don't know if anyone has studied music who's listening to this, but I honestly, I'm in awe of you if you passed it, because it just was too hard for me. You hear a piece of music and they say, write the notes on this. I just, you know, it was too difficult. But no, I could never have been a music. I like music. You can see my guitar amp behind me here. Can you see?
We've had something in the chat actually ask, is that a guitar amp? So
it's a Fender as well. So, you know, I mean, I'm better now at music than I was. I can knock out a few tunes on a Fender. But no, I'd have been an English teacher probably.
Excellent, thank you for that. So on to the next question. This is something that kind of, as I go out to schools and colleges and speak to students about joining higher education and about their different kind of pathways, and something that I always find is that they find they're having a bit of pressure from maybe their peers, or they have external pressure from their parents. And I'm just wondering, how did you deal with that external pressure when you were younger?
Ooh, yeah. I don't know, with difficulty at times, because as I say, I didn't always have massive confidence necessarily. But my mum and dad weren't pushy, if you know what I mean. They were encouraging without being pushy. And I think I never felt under pressure from them. I felt more under pressure from the school at times. Oh, you can go to Cambridge. And I was like, no, not me. I won't fit in there. You know, so I always kind of resisted that pressure from the school. But looking back, and it goes back to what I said earlier, the pressure sometimes is good, and people are saying it because they see something in you. And I'd say to all the young people, if people are pushing you to do something, it's because they think you can do it. And it might be you that's holding you back from doing it. And so therefore, do listen to what your teachers and what your parents are saying. And, I think the great thing about Greater Manchester is actually people are rooted and connected, but there's a bit of a swagger as well here, isn't there? People have got a bit of something about them, a bit of confidence, and and I know sometimes it can be front, and it's behind the front is not always what it seems. But actually, I don't know. There's something about people here that is a great quality actually of kind of just that bit of confidence. So keep that, everybody, and don't be overconfident or arrogant. Never veer into that. But confidence is good.
I think everyone in Manchester has that sparkle about them. I'm not a Manchester native like yourself or my colleagues. I'm originally from Liverpool, and but I think Manchester has that charm, and Mancunians have that sparkle about them. So I completely agree.
Is Gary Neville aware that there's a Scouse takeover of UA92 this afternoon?
I've kept it.
I'm not sure it'll go down very well with him.
So moving back on.
Are you Everton or Liverpool located? Let's get to the important questions.
Norris Green. So. A big Evertonian family.
Evertonian?
Yeah.
Do you know what? Do you know what I discovered yesterday? Everton have scored more goals and won more matches at Anfield in 2021 than Liverpool. Isn't that a great statistic?
Brilliant statistic. Something that my dad, I'm sure, will tell me today. I'm sure.
And it's March, and we've scored more goals than anyway. Sorry, I'm dining out on that this weekend.
So going back to kind of your career, what has been the most proudest moment in your career?
I think it's when I was elected Mayor of Greater Manchester. Because by that point, when I stood, I've been an MP for 16 years. And sometimes, it's not easy being in politics. You don't get everything right. And I know that I will have said things and done things over the years that will have annoyed a lot of people. And, you can't always get everything right. And when I left being the MP for Lee in 2017 and stood to be Mayor of Greater Manchester, you wonder, will people still sort of see what I'm trying to do, and will they kind of give me their support? But honestly, I can't tell you what it meant to get 63% of the vote then in 2017. I mean, that was fantastic. That, I think, is the pinnacle of my career, because in the end, I didn't come into politics to please people anywhere else. I just care about the people here. That's always been what I'm about. The people of the Northwest, the people of Greater Manchester, they are the best people in the world, in my view. I don't think you could go anywhere in the world and find better people than the people who live here in terms of their warmth and their decency. And to win 63% of their support just meant the world to me, to be honest. And yeah, I don't think I'll top that, really. I mean, on a more kind of, in terms of a specific achievement, it was the work that I did around Hillsborough and the reopening of the inquest into Hillsborough. So I was 19 on the day that it happened. Most of my friends were Liverpool supporters. Many of them were at the match where 96 people died. And to have the authorities of this country blame those supporters and the victims, which is what happened, was a shocking thing, and it remains one of the most shocking things that you can ever imagine. And it was in 2009 at the 20th anniversary where I was the culture secretary. And if you've not seen it, you can see it on the YouTube. It wasn't easy because I went to Anfield as part of the government and got a lot of stick, rightly, from the Liverpool supporters, because the government I was in had not done enough for the people. And it was often the case that the people in the Northwest are just treated as second-class citizens, and Hillsborough was a classic example of that. And although it was a really tough day that day, I did resolve to do something on the back of it and go against the government that I was in and took a stand. And it wasn't easy to do that, but I did it. And in the end, I turned it around and got people to reopen the inquest, and we got a new verdict. So I think if something matters most to me personally in my professional life, it would be that.
Brilliant, thank you for that. And so we have another question from one of our students. So Amy has a question, and she's from Blackpool Sixth Form College.
Hi Andy, I'm Amy and I'm the chairman of the Student Council at Blackpool Sixth Form College. Lockdown has been a struggle for many students up and down the UK who have felt demotivated and isolated. So my question to you is, how do you stay driven and motivated in your career?
Oh, thanks, Amy. It's a really important question, that. And it's not easy, is it? I think we all suffer from that, don't we, from time to time. You have good phases in your career where you really feel on it, and then you have phases where you're struggling a bit with it. So I'm no different, and it's been like that this year. It's always like that. You know, you just have ups and downs. How do I stay motivated? It's having that focus on why you're doing what you're doing, and what you're all about, and what you're trying to achieve. And I think if you just keep that in mind all the time, it just helps you get through the sort of darker bits of it all. And there will be darker bits. There'll be times when you're knocked back and you're knocked down, or someone says something to you and it really gets to you. And you know, and bear in mind, you know, I'm no different from any of you. That still happens to me now. I've learned to be a bit better at letting it bounce off. And sometimes, you know, in my profession on social media, I mean, you'll all relate to this as young people, but we can get it, not as much as footballers, because they sometimes get absolutely battered, don't they? But we get it a bit as politicians as well, and that can drag you down a bit. So it is hard, but the thing is, we all have to learn to be resilient now in this world, the way it is, and the challenging way it is. Just remember what you're all about, what you're trying to do, what matters to you, and what you're trying to achieve. And I think if you just keep that focus all of the time, it kind of carries you through the more darker and difficult phases. And there'll always be those phases. And when they do happen, don't let them completely, you know, derail you, because, you know, it's just life, and it's about, you know, rough with the smooth, and just learning to sort of keep going. But yeah, I think, you know, that's the best advice I could give to everybody about that.
Brilliant, thank you. So what do you think is the biggest misconception of being mayor or working in politics?
I think with being mayor, it's people think I run everything, and, you know, every single thing that happens in Greater Manchester, you know, if there's wrong things on the shelves in the supermarket, or the weather's bad. I mean, I sometimes it feels like I can get blamed for pretty much everything and anything that happens. And so that's one thing. And obviously I don't control everything. I can try and influence a lot of things, even if I don't have the power to do something about it. But yeah, I mean, you know, that's a little difficult at times. I think the main thing about politics more generally, I think there is a perception that anyone in politics is in it for themselves rather than the wider good. And I'll be honest, you know, I think from my time in Westminster, I would say, I think 3 out of 4 are in it to do something that's good for their community or wider society. And I know it doesn't always seem that way, but they are. There is 1 in 4 that is basically careerist, out for themselves, you know, so there is a good number of people like that. But that's true in probably any workplace. You know, there's always the ones who are self-serving. And I would just say that sometimes, you know, politicians have sunk quite low really in the public esteem, and everyone just thinks they're in it for themselves. But you said before, Kate, about deeds, not words. I mean, genuinely, I'm not in politics anymore for the sort of the point scoring that politicians do, or the kind of, I am in it to make change for the better for people, believe it or not. I donate 15% of my salary every month, because I don't want anybody to think that, you know, I'm asking them to do something that I'm not prepared to do myself. So I donate that money to the work we do on homelessness in Greater Manchester. I said I would introduce a free bus pass for young people in Greater Manchester, because I want them to go to brilliant institutions like UA92. I want you all to follow your dreams. You know, I say this to all young people on this call. I believe in you. I know it sounds a bit corny to say that, but I do. I think we've got some of the most talented people in the country. And I think too many of you are often held back by the finances of your family, or maybe the lack of connections that your family has. And I don't want any of that to hold you back. Look at our city centre now. Look at the buildings there. Look at the businesses, the organisations that we have in Greater Manchester. You know, I want all of those places to be open to you, and for all of you to be able to find fantastic careers and futures in those places. And, you know, I made a promise at the last election to introduce free bus travel for 16 to 18-year-olds, and I've done it. And I think that's really important. You know, when you say something, do it. So I guess what I'm coming to is the bit that's difficult with my job is that people sometimes tend to think the worst of you. And sometimes politicians can't always do everything that they say just because life's so complicated and events happen. But I please believe me when I say that most, I'm not saying all because it's not all, but most, and I'm even talking about conservative politicians when I say this, most are trying to do what they think is beneficial to wider society. And I think we need to. I actually have a hope, Katie, that the generation of people I'm talking to today will fix politics. I think that my generation has got a lot wrong. They've failed to kind of carry public trust in politics. They've failed to rise to the climate challenge. And I count myself part of this. We failed to create a situation where everybody has a good home and has a fair wage. And I trust actually in your generation to put some of these things right that my generation got wrong.
Brilliant, thank you for that. We have another student question actually. So this is from Grace at Rochdale Sixth Form College.
Hi, my name's Grace and I'm from Rochdale Sixth Form College. My question for Andy Burnham is, how did you cope with the opposition strategies to portray you in a negative way?
Yeah, good question, Grace. I mean, I was touching a little bit on this before, wasn't I, about the knocks that come in politics. And the Tories do go for me quite a lot. You may have noticed that. They always have, to be honest. I think it's because I rattle their cage a bit, though. So how do I cope with it? When I was younger, I found it harder to cope with it. But the way I cope with it now is, if people are attacking me, I think it's often because you are getting to what matters and you're touching a nerve and you're exposing what they don't want to be exposed. So when I had my little teeny weeny argument with Boris last year, Katie, I did what I did there, not for the show of it or the theatre of it, or to sort of say, look at me or anything. It built up because what they were doing was treating people in Greater Manchester different from the way they would treat people in London. That's basically what was happening. And they tried to shut all the pubs and pay the people who worked in those pubs 67% of their wages. When it was offices that were closing, they got 80% furlough. And for me, that was just that's how I work. If I look at things carefully, if it's fair, I'll go with it, no matter who's proposing. But when it's wrong, and particularly when it's discriminatory against the North, then no, I'm gonna take a stand about that. So when I did take a stand against Boris last year, and people might remember, some of the things that I did in that time, I knew, Grace, that they were going to come after me afterwards. I knew it. I know it. I know how they work. And let me just explain this to you. Politicians in Westminster have very cozy relationships with journalists. And this is how it works. When the government wants to go at somebody, they've got lots of friends that they call up in the media. And when I was doing that thing last year about the lack of support for people here who were having their jobs closed, my daughter, who's at university, started to get journalists from an unmentionable newspaper following her around, trying to write a story on her that she was doing things wrong at university. I got all this stuff dredged up about some of my time when I was in Westminster. I mean, sadly, that's how the world works. But I know the only way I cope with it, Grace, is that I know how the world works now. I know what the dark arts of politics and the media are like. So I expected it. And I also expect it when I'm hitting them hard and I'm actually making points that are landing. And I know that's when they do it, when you're actually landing criticisms and points that need to be answered. So I take it weirdly now as a sort of a patch of doing my job properly. If they're coming at me, it's because I'm actually saying something that is troubling them. So it's not easy. And as I say, I'm not claiming to always get everything right. And I know I will annoy people sometimes with some of the things that I do or say. But overall, I do try and do what I do I'm here to speak for the people of Greater Manchester. nobody in the government or in the media is going to stop me from speaking up for people here when I think it's right to do it. And that's what keeps me going. When I'm out and about, sometimes through that whole thing, even though I knew the media and the government were going to come after me, I had people saying, oh, well done, thanks for taking a stand. And that is also how I cope. When you just kind of feel the people behind you here in the community, it gives you all the strength that you need, and it gives you that sort of body armor to sort of bash away the negative stories that come from the right-wing media.
Excellent, thank you for that. I'm going to go to the next question from one of our UA92 students, because I know we've only got 8 minutes left and I'd like to get through the next 2 questions. So this is a question from Millie at UA92.
I'm Millie and I'm a second year media and communication student at UA92 and also one of the hosts of the Chats with UA92 inside of the podcast. At UA92, one of our modules is on being an influential communicator, and I'm sure as the Mayor of Manchester, you have to have strong communication skills. What was the piece of advice would you give to students on being a great communicator?
Oh, I don't know if I always am, to be honest. I've learnt it a bit over the years. It's what I was saying before. Speak clearly, speak from the heart. Don't try and put on an accent that's not yours, or kind of pretend to be somebody you're not. I think when it comes to communications, the public see through that. And Millie, one thing I really learned, I stood to be the leader of the Labour Party or twice actually. I lost twice, so I've not everything in my career has gone right. I lost to Jeremy Corbyn in 2015 and to Ed Miliband in 2010. And when I was kind of going into those campaigns, I remember it really vividly. I was really nervous about getting all my words right. When I was holding a bit of paper and reading it, and wanted to be word perfect when I was doing a media interview or a speech. I wanted all the words to be just right. And actually, what I learned was that doesn't come over to the public when you look a bit nervous, when you're communicating in front of people. And it was only towards the end of one of those leadership campaigns where I kind of ripped up the script and started just speaking myself, even though it wasn't word perfect, if this makes sense. I still was just speaking. And what I learned about that was the public at home, if they're watching you present, are actually more looking at your body language and your passion than they're listening to the actual words and the order of the words. And I think sometimes you kind of obsess on the words and not enough on, what you feel about something, and if I would always say to you, if you're going to communicate on things you care about and do it with feeling, because that gets your message over to people so much more than something that might look a bit scripted or a bit, I don't know, inauthentic somehow. And sometimes if you're nervous, you can come over like that and it just doesn't connect with the audience. So I would say good communications, and this just isn't political communications, actually, it's any communications. If you're looking as though you believe it and you feel it, that is actually 90% of the battle. And that the public will relate to that. What they won't necessarily relate to is a sort of, a kind of heavily sort of scripted speech. And it took me a long time to learn that, but I think finally I have learned it now. And I think be natural, be yourself, be passionate, and that is the best form of communications.
Excellent, thank you. And then on to the next question from Abs at UA92.
Hi Andy, I'm Abs, second year journalism student, and my question for you is, what do you hope to bring and what do you envision for the next 12 months when the national lockdown is lifted, and what support do you have in place for students and their well-being? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Abs. I do recognise how tough it's been for you all. Two of my kids are a student at university, so I honestly do have a bit of a sense of this, and I think school-age kids as well. You've all lost so much, and I think we've got to prioritise you coming out of this. Young people should be our priority. And to be fair to the government, the opening of schools on Monday is kind of embodying that, isn't it? We're going to young people first, and then young people's sport returning. So I think they've got that right. What more can we do for you? Well, I've got a task force looking at this at the moment, led by Diane Medal, who's somebody from Moss Side who went on to become an Olympic athlete. And we're looking at what more we need to do for you. Mental health support, I think, is a massive part of what we need to do. just more everyday mental health support. We've launched some online mental health services during the pandemic, and I think, Katie, we're probably going to keep them because they've been quite heavily used, and I think we need to have ongoing everyday mental health support for young people. I think we need to do more to support every young person in Greater Manchester online. So I want to do more to kind of reduce the cost of data to see if we can, because connectivity is critical now, isn't it, for people to find opportunity. I've launched a service called GMAX. I don't know if it's familiar to anybody on this call, Greater Manchester Apprenticeships and Careers Service. I think we need to be better at presenting you with all of the opportunities that are in the Greater Manchester economy for you, be that a job or an apprenticeship or just work shadowing or whatever it might be. So we're really looking to build up GMAX because we want you to see all the opportunities that are out there. So it's a good question, Abs. I mean, it's about connectivity, transport and digital connectivity. It's about mental health and well-being. It's about opportunity, isn't it? Seeing the opportunities that are out there. And then massively backing Marcus Rashford again, and, you know, everything about everyone having the basics. You know, this being a city region where no one goes without the basics. I mean, you know, that is something that, you know, I'm passionate about as well. I'm particularly recognising that there are some young people, let's say young people in care or young people leaving care. We need to do more for them and be their parents because they haven't got parents to fall back on. So the R Pass, which is our free bus pass for 16 to 18s, we're extending that to the age of 21 for young people who've been in care in Greater Manchester. So, you know, we're looking at all of these things, but, you know, I'm really passionate that we need to, you know, throw all the support in your direction coming out of this. And Diane has been helping me work on what we're calling a young person's guarantee to ensure that we help young people in Greater Manchester recover quickly from COVID.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. And so we're running a little bit out of time now. So I just want to go to one of the questions that we received in the chat from Matthew, which I think is a brilliant question to kind of end on. And he is saying, what's one piece of advice that you would give to students listening right now?
The one piece of advice would be, well, there's probably a couple of bits. Believe in yourself, number one. You know, be true to yourself and believe in yourself. You know, don't doubt yourself. Don't hate yourself. You know, believe in yourself. You're special. You're unique, and you know you can do it. You can go as far as I've gone. There's absolutely no reason why not. So I would really say that, Katie, and I would also, though, say think always as well about you, not just yourself, but where you've come from and those around you. You know, in my career, I've seen it in Westminster and other places. People who punch down or kick down, if you know what I mean. You kind of like get into positions and then take it out on people beneath them. I think the great thing about Gary Neville, obviously one of the founders of your university, is that he really embodies that Greater Manchester spirit of being entrepreneurial and ambitious, but at the same time caring and never, you know, somebody who's always thinking about bringing up people from all sides and building a sense of we're all together, never forgetting his roots. And for me, he really embodies something that is kind of fantastic about the northwest of England, where never people are we who walk on by on the other side. You know, if you're in the workplace and you see someone being bullied, or in university someone being bullied, stand up for them. If you hear racism or hate of any kind, call it out. You know, that's us, I think. You know, look out for yourself, be ambitious for yourself, but never punch down and never, you know, let others be done down in your presence. You know, we're all, at the end of the day, the same. We're all equal. When I go around Manchester and I see the B, you know, everywhere on the bins and on, you know, cars and everything, I don't know what it means to you, but I'll tell you what it means to me, that nobody in this place is more important than anyone else. We're all just sort of bees in the sort of system. We're all trying to get on. We're all trying to help each other. And I think that's what sets us apart. It's why I say we're the best people here in the world, because there's a belief in the us and the we rather than the I. I mean, the I is important, and don't do that down. But in the end, what makes better people is people who see more than themselves and who want to get on but lift other people with you. And that's the advice I've always given. And in the end, I think it works for you as well if you're a team player and, you know, other people can work with you. So I don't know if that connects with you, but It's the way I've always tried to do things. Have your values, know what you believe in. And just to finish on the point that Katie made, deeds, not words. I think sometimes we live in an era of words, not deeds, where people will put gestures on social media, or I believe this, and what's it called, virtue signaling and all of this kind of thing. Well, don't just say it, do it. This leading by example is so important in this life. If you just go and do something, it kind of inspires a lot of other people around you. So show what you're about by your deeds and what you're all about. And I think you won't go far wrong in life. That authenticity will come through, and it will carry you a long way. So good luck to you all. I'm so proud of UA92 and what you're doing to open up university education to people across Greater Manchester. I really believe in your mission, actually. And I've seen this afternoon the quality of the questions and contributions from young people. So all power to your elbow, all of you. I'm here to try and support you in whatever way I can. Good luck for the future. And to finish on that note, we believe in you, and you're going to go far.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Andy. Thank you for supporting this session. Brilliant answers as per usual. So thank you.
No worries, Katie. Thank you to you.
Thank you. Look forward to seeing you soon. Bye.
And up the toffees.
Up the toffees, yeah, definitely.
Gary will like that.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.